All right, set this hood out the way. Put it right over here. What's up, YouTube? And welcome to Chicken Eye Garage. Now you might be telling yourself, what kind of silly name is Chicken Eye Garage? You'd have to be an idiot to name your channel that. Guess what? That's what you're looking at. An idiot. Well, we have a saying around this shop. It goes like this. The difference between a regular idiot and me is that I'm a finely tuned idiot. So what we have here is a 1976 Chevy Love. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this project, I'm gonna give you a real quick rundown. Picked this truck up from a friend of mine for cheap. Paid about $1,000, delivered to my doorstep. But I took a gamble on it, hence the name Vegas Truck, because the original Isuzu motor was locked up. Now, there's a series of videos if you want to watch it. I did get the engine unlocked, got it to spin, even got it to run. But once I put a coolant system in it, it was apparent that this engine was junk. Blown head gasket, warped head, all of the above. And I just said, you know what? I'm done spending money on this turd. Snatched it out, sold it for a few $100. Bought a 350 out of a 1987 Chevy Square Booty. And I got, I think, a pretty good deal, $700, and it had everything. A 350 that came in a Chevrolet pickup, it was all attached to it. Cruise control, electronic distributor, the TBI system, which he replaced with a Holly system. So I ended up selling that, and that covered the cost of this carbureted intake. So now it's got a carburetor on it, Edelbroken, as Vice Grip calls it, Edelbrock. I got this thing to run, but it only ran for a few seconds because, hence today's video, we need to install a radiator. Now, I picked up a radiator from Summit Racing yesterday. In that box right there, kind of sitting sideways. That's putting a chicken eye on it, getting a little look at it, see how everything's going to work. So let me take y'all off the mug, grab that radiator, take a closer look at it. There's the part number to the radiator I'm going to be trying to use. This is a Griffin radiator, and yes, it's made in the USA. Not too bad for $229. Now, I probably could have bought some $149 special from eBay, but you know where that's going to be made. This radiator in dimension is 24 inches wide by 16. However, the factory opening is not. I think it's like 18 and a half or something. But from here to here is 24 inches. So yeah, we're going to have to do a whole lot of surgery to make this fit. Now, as far as up and down, I don't know what I'm going to have to trim to make it fit. But what I need to do is when the water pump's in place, I want to run a manual fan. And so I want to sneak the radiator forward to make all that work. I got a 17-inch Flexolite fan that used to be on my 1966 C10, but I put dual electric fans when I did a vintage air install. And so now I just got that fan just sitting there waiting for me. And I'm trying to do this on the cheap. That's why I kind of went with that radiator. It's a universal fit for whatever you want to use it for. It seemed like might be a circle track radiator, you know, for the circle track racing, dirt track guys. I think that's what that's for. But it could be for whatever you want to fit it in. Not to get off course with this video, but if you got a Chevy Love and you still got your Isuzu motor, but you need a radiator, yours is junk and or missing, 1966 Mustang straight six radiator will fit right in between the factory opening once you trim the edges of the radiator. There's the one I got when I got the Isuzu to run. I bought that radiator from Rock Auto. I think I paid like $125 for it or something like that. Then I had to pay an extra $5 for a radiator cap. Yeah, like I said, fit right in between factory opening. Just have to trim the edges of the radiator and it fit. And your factory hoses will fit as well. I think I had to trim the lower hose a little more than you would normally have to fit the factory hoses and radiator, but that's no big deal. So factory hoses will still fit. A little extra trimming is involved. So if you need a radiator for your Love and you still got the original motor, 66 Mustang straight six will put you where you need. So you see what needs to be done. And before we get into trimming, if you're new to this channel, periodically I'll stop and give y'all about 3 seconds of mug time. Yes. Periodically throughout the video, you will see the mug. Give you about 3 seconds of that. That way it recharges y'all. Sometimes I know you'll be in there watching, you might start slipping away a little bit. I hit y'all about 3 seconds of that mug. You're back in business. You're ready to go again. Speaking of going, we have some good coffee this morning. And I'm going to need all the caffeine I can get. It's going to be a busy day today. I got a whole lot of trimming to do. So, let me take y'all off of this and get on to that. Ain't no turning back now. All right, we got the driver's side rough cut in, kind of cleaned up the edges. We're to the spot where I need to be for now. More than likely there's going to be more trimming involved. Let me go ahead and do this other side and then we'll go from there. Little bit of a bird's nest under that battery tray, wasn't it? Don't worry about that. I'm going to be moving the battery to the back of the bed. I'll get one of those battery boxes, NHRA approved deal. Move the battery over there and that's where she's going. Plus I could use all the real estate I can get up front. Let me go ahead and finish trimming this passenger side of the core support. Get to where I think we need to be. And give that new radiator test fit. And see what else has to be trimmed. I have a sneaky suspicion, quite a bit more. All right, with the water pump in place, let's give it a little test fit. Not gonna work, not at that angle. Looks like more trimming needs to be done. And I was kind of quarterbacking this off camera. Gonna be a little bit of a challenge, let me show y'all. Now to make the top of that radiator go more forward, I'm gonna have to cut all this out right here. And the problem with that is it's a part of this as well. And this is where the hood hinge is. So cutting all that out on that side, and I have to trim that as well. That's going to get off into this hood hinge bracket or whatever you want to call that. And that's not going to have any structural integrity once I do that. Now I do own a welder, so I ain't afraid to do a little welding. But that's a little bit more invasive than I was hoping it would be. I also noticed I need to trim this out because this needs to go down. Did y'all notice how offset the spout for the water pump is to the radiator? You see the outlet for the water pump? Look how low it is compared to the outlet for the radiator. So if I trim this spot here and get the radiator to rest more on this one here, that should put this where it needs to be there. Now it's going to be a short trip. We'll have to figure out what kind of radiator hose we'll need to run. We'll deal with that later. But that is what we're going to do. So I'm going to trim this first before I trim any of this. More than likely I'm going to have to trim this, but I'm not looking forward to that. Let's do the lower part first. I think that's going to be a better start. And then we'll see what we got to do from there. Yeah guys, once I trimmed that top part of the box, I realized the bottom part was just a flimsy piece of rusty steel. So I trimmed it all out of the way. And if need be, we may just have to cut all of this out. I'm not 100% sure yet. If I have to give it some structural integrity, I can build something, whatever I got to do. Like I showed you earlier, I have a welder and I need some practice. I guarantee you that. So now that all that's kind of rough cut out the way, let's drop the radiator in the hole. So that's looking much better from spout to spout. Still going to be a short distance for a hose, but that's starting to be more in the ballpark of where that right there needs to be. As far as the top part of the radiator, I'm going to have to trim some more. I'm starting to realize that I may have a hard time accessing the radiator cap, but I ain't gonna know what I'm gonna have to deal with there until I cut some more. Now there's two ways to cut this. I've seen people just cut all this out of the way. A lot of the drag racers do that stuff, but I'm trying to keep my hood hinges located. This is where the hood, because I don't know if you know about Chevy Loves, the hood, it's kind of like a Corvette. It flips forward. And then this tab is where the grill screws into on the top part. And then it's got two sides, and then it's got a couple on the bottom. About where that little folded tab is, it's spot welded there. And we just cut along there, go all the way across. Same thing on the other side. And then cut all that out. Not this. And then from here all the way across as well. Like I stated earlier, I got a welder, so I ain't worried about having to redo some stuff, re-weld it, add some structural integrity to whatever. But I kind of want to keep this part in place. That way my hood hinges, my grill mount, and all that stuff are still in the factory location. Let me suit back up, and I don't know, maybe I'll set the camera up. If y'all want to watch it, great. If you don't, then just fast forward until you see the mug again. Speaking of which, yes. All right, back to cutting. Well, I got it cut and separated, but it ain't removing. Yeah, I don't know. So this is what I'm fighting right here. Couldn't figure out why this wouldn't come apart. Right there. Wow. And I tell you what else is coming apart. My patience. So let me take 5 before I toss this camera in the garbage. I had to take a quick cool down break. I was starting to get heated. Removing that piece was frustrating me. Plus, wearing all that stuff on and it being really humid outside, I was getting hot. The beads were beading in areas I was starting to get frustrated. So I apologize for that little outburst. I can promise you one thing. When it comes to sparks flying, cutting and grinding, I don't mess around. I ain't like other YouTube channels. I put the safety stuff on. I've had metal in my eye before. It ain't no fun. I can guarantee you that. But now we're getting somewhere as far as the clearance goes in between the water pump and the radiator. I'm probably going to have to trim right here a little bit so I can get a radiator cap off and on, be able to rotate it. So I'll probably have to do a little trimming. Whatever I got to do to make it all work, that's what we're going to have to do. Now, one thing I noticed when I was sitting in my chair, you see that thermostat housing? Yeah. That might be higher than the radiator. I can tell you right now, that's not going to be a good thing, because when I'm trying to bleed air out of the system, that may cause a problem. And maybe trapped air getting that stuck in that thermostat housing, it won't come out because that's the highest spot. Not that big a deal. I think if I raise this up maybe an inch, about like that maybe, that'll probably make that the higher point. I'll have to mess with all that here in a minute. I need to go up in that attic. That's where that 17-inch Flexolite fan is. And on this 283, I need to get that pulley and those 2 bolts holding all that in place. I need to borrow all that because that's the pulley I'm more likely going to run. That is for a short water pump, which is what's on this engine now. And I need those 2 bolts. So let me get up in the attic, grab that fan real quick, get all that bolted in place, and see what it looks like. Well, as you can see, I got the fan in place. Tell you what, that is cutting it close on the clearance. Look at that. I don't know if this fan's going to work. I mean, it's clearing now, but with the flex of the engine moving around, it might hit. I don't know what I'm going to do there. I got 2 options. That's a 17-inch fan. I can get a 16-inch. That should be enough. Or I can shim the motor mounts. Yeah, it's just a biscuit style motor mount. I could put a spacer in between there. That'll raise it up some. That is definitely the cheaper route. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do there. I did look it up through Summit Racing, and they do make a Flexolite fan just like this one. I make a blue one and a silver one. I don't know why the silver one's cheaper, but it is by $20 too. I can either do that and play it safe, or I'll shim the motor. Either way, I will show y'all later on in the video. Believe it or not, with the fan in place, a little on the tight side, but I can get the radiator to drop in there. There you go, that works out pretty good. Now, how efficient is this going to be? I have no idea. I won't know until I get this thing running and driving and able to go down the road. And I can guarantee you one thing, we're a long ways away from that. All right, it's ugly, but it's notched out. And once I get that radiator located a little on the higher up side, I should have no issue removing that radiator cap. I still got a lot of cleanup to do, especially in these nooks and crannies. Probably gonna need a Dremel and all that good stuff. I don't know what I'm gonna have to do about getting coolant in here. I don't know if I'm gonna need to C-notch that or just leave it be. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut it down for the night. It's dark outside, and I still need to clean up this old pile of rusty, dusty, crusty crap. That's a pretty big pile there. Unfortunately, tomorrow starts the beginning of the work week, so I don't know when I'm going to pick back up on the old Vegas truck. I think the next thing I'm going to need to do is get some kind of plates for that radiator to set on, and that's going to require a little bit of welding, so I'm going to have to put the old chicken eye on it, see what gots to be done there. That way, when I pick back up on the video, you'll know what needs to be did. What's up, guys? Real quick, I didn't want to mic up or anything in the middle of the week, and I wanted to show y'all what I'm gonna be doing real quick. I think I'm gonna just trim all that off right there. I think that'll look a little bit better, a little bit more aesthetic, give me a little bit more space. Might even help get a little bit of coolant in that radiator. Let's try that out and see what happens. All right, I got that edge cleaned up pretty good. So let's go ahead and grab that radiator real quick, see how it fits. There's definitely gonna be better access to the radiator cap now, especially filling up with coolant, plus getting to it to remove it. Plus, I kind of think it looks, I don't know, I think aesthetically it looks a little bit better than it did before. I will say this, she's definitely beer can status now. I don't know if I'm gonna try to reinforce that somehow on the bottom side or just leave it be. You don't put your body weight on it. It's like if you needed to work under the hood, because like I said earlier, the old lug hoods open up like a Corvette. So if you're gonna work on this truck, it's gonna be from side to side. All right, I'm pretty satisfied with that. You know what else is satisfying? Yes, midweek mug time. All right, back to work. Always at one, ain't it? Remember that lower cross member I was talking about, it may have to go? It's going. Anymore. Now that I got that bar out the way, it's gonna make it a lot easier, one, for me to locate that radiator where it needs to be, and two, probably gonna be a whole lot easier for welding, and three, it just looks better out of the way, because the more I looked at it, the stupider it got. And speaking of stupid looking, so I think I found a mounting solution for the radiator. So this is a 2-inch piece of angle aluminum that I picked up from Lowe's. I think once I finally make the decision of how high it needs to be or low, and I'll commit to mounting it to the cross member. This is 1/8 inch thick, I think. Feels like it anyways. So what I may do is just drill some holes and tap it, and then just use some bolts and just mount it that way. I did utilize the chicken eye, and I think I got it pretty centered. Looks good to me. Now that radiator hose right there is an old hose. It came off the old 6.6. Now I got ahead of myself on that, and I did not use the chicken eye. And so I cut it probably 1 inch too short. That's why it's not covering the tube like I'd like it to. But I can use it. Technically, there is enough meat to clamp to. But for me personally, aesthetically, I don't like it. But I may run it for now. I just need to come up with an upper hose. And if that works out okay, then I'll get a brand new hose and just utilize the chicken eye as I cut it to fit. And then it'll be the permanent hose for this radiator. I think the distance between the radiator and the fan's pretty good. I do have a shim I need to put on the pulley. I think I'm going to need it. I'm not 100% sure yet until I get the crank pulley and all that stuff in. But there should be plenty of room for that shim, which leads us to making an upper mount. I think what I'm going to do is the exact same thing I did down there. When I was doing all that cutting and trimming to make a bigger opening, I noticed these 2 holes right here. Now, I don't have to use them, but I'm going to. I had some 1.5 inch angle aluminum kind of bending in place. Once I find the right location, it should work. Now guys, I can tell you right now, I'm not a fabricator. I stared at this truck and this radiator for hours. Or it seemed like hours anyways, trying to come up with stuff. I mean, I got some box tubing that I cut in half and was kind of trimming it. What I was trying to do is do something like that, but further in, obviously, and then maybe weld it to the box here. But then I'd have to come up with some kind of mounting pad solution because you just don't want the aluminum setting on the steel. And I ain't gonna lie, everything I was coming up with would have worked. I just didn't like it. And I'm not 100% sure I even like this, but I like it a whole lot better than everything else I was coming up with. And the best thing about it is if I don't like it in the future, or if whatever the case may be, I can take that off and use it for something else and then come up with a different mounting solution. But I started thinking about it. This may not be a bad mounting solution, because if you're watching this video trying to get an idea of what you can do for a small block Chevy radiator solution, and you ain't got no welder, and you're limited on funds, and you're just trying to do this on the cheap, well, this might help you out. I'll show you the tool I'm going to use, because we're going to make this upper mount. I'm going to set up the camera and we're going to get to it. We'll make that upper mount with that tool I got. And if it all works out, then you could do this at home and you don't even need a welder. Just basic, simple tools. Let me take y'all over there to the workbench, get everything all set up, and we're going to make that upper mount. All right, here's the 2 inch angle aluminum. I cut it down to 12 inches. I've already kind of radiused the corners. To me, it just looks aesthetically pleasing. Plus, you don't have to worry about no sharp corners sticking you or cutting you. Cleaned up all the edges. So now we're ready to bend this. Oh. I don't know if y'all heard that, but somebody's getting down out there. Watch yourself. Watch yourself. Don't make me come out there. I'll fire this 6.6 and I'll light them up. So this is roughly where I want that piece to bend, where that black line is. I don't know if y'all can see that. But that is 16 millimeters. I could have used the standard system, but it's very complicated to use. I got the machinist ruler. I just used the metric side and counted to 16, and that's where I need it to be, I believe. I bought this tool right here. It's a bending tool. This side right here will get you a 1 inch bend, and then that top end will get you a 3/8. I don't honestly know what this is for. I guess flashing and stuff like that, more for home purposes, but works really well for what I'm about to do. And it's only going to work for 1/16 of an inch thick steel or aluminum. Slide right in there and then you do your bend. When you get ready to bend this, obviously you're going to need a vise or some way to clamp it. Vise is going to be your best solution. Once you clamp the piece in place and you started trying to bend, whatever wasn't in the vise started flexing and it wasn't going to bend evenly. So you're going to need some kind of something to isolate the whole piece as you're bending in the vise. Something that won't flex while you're trying to bend it. I got these scrap square tubes. We'll line that up in the vise or on this piece right here, and then put it in the vise. Now don't go full tight yet. Make sure, because once you bend it and you bend it crooked, you can't unbend it. I can tell you that right now. Looking like 24 millimeters on the money. And 24 millimeters on the money. Put a little extra pinch. Now when you put this in here and get ready to bend it, I recommend gloves. You don't need them, but from personally somebody like me, I got delicate hands. Oh yeah. Chicken eye always works. Oh yeah. Yep. That's it, my friends. So guys, tell me, what do y'all think? Do you think this is stupid looking, or do you think it's gonna work out pretty well? I think it is. I mean, like I said, I'm not a fabricator. I can kind of create some stuff. I'm kind of creative, and I learn as I go. Sometimes I watch other people, and you kind of get ideas from them. And by any means, you can do whatever you want as far as making a radiator mount. You can weld, whatever you got to do. You don't even have to run the radiator I'm running. Maybe you're just tuned in because you like looking at the mug. Yeah, I know you ain't tired of it. We'll go ahead and mark it, drill the holes, and we'll use those factory holes that are already there. Drill it into there, and then wherever that lands, drill it off into the radiator, and call it good. I am using some stainless steel screws. Use whatever you want, but I had some already, locking nuts, so I'm running that. So the radiator is officially mounted. Tap these holes 10-30 seconds, some stainless steel screws and washers. And on the top, same thing, it's just screws and then the nut on the back side. All in all, I think that's going to work out pretty good. Pretty sturdy too, if you ask me. You ever get in those situations where you're trying to make something work that doesn't fit in this particular car or truck? Hence this radiator. I did a lot of measuring, chicken eyeing, and doing all kinds of stuff before I decided on this radiator. Now, honestly, I wanted a 24x18, but they didn't make one for cheap. This is the cheapest one I found, close to the dimensions I was trying to go for, which is a 24x16. But something totally slipped the noodle, and I'm about to show you. Yeah. You see what we got going on here? That ain't gonna work. And the blade's really close. If I had to curve the hose here, plus you gotta figure there's gonna be a belt going across there. If you want your pump alternator to spin, you got to have something to tie the two together. This stuff isn't Wi-Fi. And so this isn't gonna work. This is a factory style bracket that was on my white 70 that I had, and I replaced it to some billet aluminum stuff and just saved this in case I ever needed it. And I was hoping I was going to get to use it on this truck, but obviously this isn't going to work. Now they do make, for short water pumps, passenger side brackets. Man, them things are like $200. They're all made by Billet Specialties, polished billet aluminum, turnbuckles, all this fancy stuff. This is a budget truck. The truck's barely worth $600. You want me to put a $200 bracket? I don't think so. So I couldn't find any solutions. There's nothing on the driver's side that's going to work. And I didn't want to get any of those brackets that really stick it off in the air. I didn't want nothing out here because, I'm trying to shut the hood. I still got to figure out even if I can get an air cleaner on this with a stock hood. That remains to be seen at a later date. But I did find one bracket that will work. And this is what I came up with. I got this bracket from Speedway Motors. And this is going to solve my issue, as you can see. This is a swivel, so whatever I come up with, it's going to be a really clean shot. I just need to stay away from the fan blade, and I should be okay. No interference down there with the lower. I don't have power steering, and obviously I'm not going to be running AC, so this is perfect. It sets below the hood line. Actually, it sets even below the carburetor. There is one issue that I will have, but I can easily address with a 1/2 inch spacer. Those fan is very, very close to that alternator pulley. See if a little light helps y'all. Now there is some hardware it comes with. You get a couple of spacers, but as you can see, they're still in the box. The only thing about this bracket is you're gonna kind of have to come up with your own shims or spacers or whatever you have to do. It even said that in the instructions that, you know, you may have alignment issues depending upon your intake and the heads and the type and whatever you're running, you may have some alignment issues, but I mean, that's pretty much on the money there. So there's the bracket for the Chevy Love. Like I said, no AC, no power steering. This works out great for my particular situation. So now there's only 3 things that I lack to get this old 350 back up and running. Obviously the upper hose, fan spacer, and I want to get a temperature gauge. But what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and get those 3 pack of gauges that you can buy: oil pressure, water temperature, and then the voltmeter. Because I'd like to know what the oil pressure is with this engine as well. Obviously this is a coolant system video, so I need to know this thing isn't going to be running hot with the setup I got going on. The voltmeter I can hook up later. And all I'm going to do for now for running it is just water. Nothing else, just pure water. Because I'm probably going to have to pull all this back out to clean up and paint whatever I need to do to get all this cleaned up, all this bare steel, don't you see? But the next time you see this, we'll be hooking up the hose, the gauges, putting a little H2O down the throat of that radiator. Hopefully we'll hear that 350 run for the second time. All right, before I shut the camera down, you know what it's gonna be. Yes, mug time. Never shut it down, a session of videoing without the mug. So I came home from work today, and a couple of parts I ordered was at my front doorstep. 1/2-inch spacer from Summit Racing. You can't get this in silver, but this is just aluminum painted black, or maybe it's anodized. And it does come with hardware. Not a bad price for 14 bucks. And I also got the gauge kit from Summit as well. This is an auto gauge brand, which is made by Autometer. They are made in Taiwan, but this is probably the best quality you're gonna get for cheap. You can get those Equus gauge you can find at the parts store, or, you know, Summit Racing has their own line of gauges, but this is a known brand, and I'm just gonna go with that. I'm gonna say this real quick. I'll put links of everything I'm buying for this video in the description: radiator, spacer, gauges, whatever. That way, if you're building a Chevy Love and you want to do it just like Charlie's doing it right now, all you got to start doing is clicking and buying. All right, go ahead and put that spacer on real quick. I got to take the radiator back out to do so, because you can't get your Hans off in there to bolt it down. And then after that, I may mess with the gauges, but I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do all that tonight. That takes a little bit of trying to find out where you want to locate everything, and then routing all your stuff, going through all that. But I'm gonna show y'all the spacer as soon as I get it installed. So I just installed the fan spacer, and check that out. I gained even more clearance. Remember how close it was before? I might be able to keep this fan after all. So with the spacer installed, I still got space in between the fan and the radiator. And I got the much needed clearance in between the fan blades and the alternator. So that spacer is working out for this particular setup. So now the next thing I'm gonna do is start installing these gauges. I'm probably not gonna film that, because I mean, this is kind of universal. You apply it, or you install it the way you want to do it, and I'm gonna install it the way I want to do it. Just basically follow instructions, power and grounds to what needs to be power and ground. I'll connect your sending units, route your stuff, make sure it doesn't come in contact with anything with any interference, and you're pretty much done. But once I get all this installed, I'll show you how I did it, how I routed everything, where I located the gauges. And then what are we lacking? An upper hose. We're gonna go ahead and run that lower hose right there for now. Some H2O. Set up the temporary fuel system. Oh yeah, I have a feeling this weekend the old Love's gonna be running. Is my sleeve just getting wet in my snapper? Hold up. Yes. All right guys, we're ready. Upper hose is installed. I got the gauges installed. Well, at least the two I need, which is the water temp and oil pressure. I'll install the voltmeter later on. So let me go ahead and run y'all through real quick, kind of show you how everything turned out as far as the gauges and the install hose. I've ran through everything. Everything's puckied up, sealed up, tightened up, whatever we got to do. And once I show you how everything turned out, I'll set up the fuel system, figure out where I'm going to set the battery, because now that I've done cut the battery tray out, I got to figure that part out. And once I do all that, we'll crack that shop door open. That way we don't die of carbon monoxide poisoning. And then run this thing for the second time. All right. So here's the part number for this hose that I'm running. I think it's going to work out. Like I stated earlier in this video, most concerning thing is kind of how flat this is. And in all honesty, this might be setting just a hair taller than the radiator itself. So what I may have to do is jack the front of the truck up, try to get the air out of the system, and hopefully everything works out doing that. There's the water temps sending unit. This is mechanical gauges, because you know the cheaper ones are the mechanical version. Got it routed up through there. I had to take the heater core box. I'll show you that here in a second. Running through one of those. There's the oil pressure gauge. The clear plastic tubing nobody likes. Of course the voltmeter will go there. I think I want the water temp closer to me when I'm driving, then oil pressure, and then the battery. Right in here was the heater box. So I just kind of, this ain't how it's going to be finalized. I'm just kind of getting it up and out of the way. I'll hook up the power and ground for the light when I get to that point. We don't need lights right now, because with the heater box and all that stuff, I really had no location to screw this to unless I went way out here. I even thought about just putting them up here, but I didn't know if I would like that, or even if that would look stupid. As far as the tachometer, I will be running one of those. I may put that right here. You can't buy a dash pad for these, so I may just clean all this up really good, get the rust off best I can, and just rattle can that black. It's got a bunch of speed holes in it, so I don't know, kind of looks cool as is. Maybe kind of clean up some of these edges or something. But there it is. Gauges installed, hose. So let me set up the fuel system, figure out how I'm going to do the battery, get all that connected. We'll fill that radiator up with water, make a little music again. All right. It's a little busy up there, but everything's hooked up. Fuel pump works. Radiator's full of water. No leaks initially. Didn't see anything oozing out of any hoses or any water pump or anything like that. No fuel leaks. I just got to connect the power to the coil, and this thing should bust off. So let's get to it. Here we go. Stay running? I don't know. Oh. I've done this before. Leave it, forget the fuel pump. would rev it up, but I can't. Throttle cable ain't hooked up. I got to do that another day. I think I bought a good engine. Sounds good. Doing what it's supposed to do. I guess the real test is put the radiator cap in it and see how it's gonna do. So good. Yeah, it's a little wet out here today. That ain't mine, that's Trey's truck. We did a little engine swap. We took out that turd 305 and put in a much more desirable 350. Got a few issues though we need to work through, but yeah. Who knows, maybe someday I might sit in my driveway for real. I noticed the coolant, the hoses ain't pressurized yet. I don't know why, but they haven't. As long as it ain't running hot, I guess I'll let it keep running. Alright, I'm gonna let this thing run off camera for a little bit. If I run into anything, if it starts running hot or whatever, I'll be sure to film it. Pretty good through the radiator, so if that fan being real close to the radiator does help. Let's see what the temperature looks like. It's been at 190 for a while, guys, so it's drivable. If I had a way to put it in gear, if I had a drive shaft, if I had brakes, if I had a way of holding more than 1 gallon of fuel, then we can go drive it, but those are remaining videos for the future. You got to stay tuned. Oh, it's already starting to pressurize a little bit. It's still not hard. Alright, we'll let it run for, I don't know, another 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll probably shut her down. I'm a Longhorn. I don't do Georgia. No offense to my Georgia subscribers. I still love you. I just don't love your team. Yeah, I don't know if y'all can see the timing mark. I don't know if the GoPro picked that up, but it's at 6 degrees right now. I'm gonna keep it kind of low until I get an ignition box. That way I like to have a little bit more advanced when, especially at idle. Stock motor I like to have around 10, but I'm gonna leave it at 6 for now. Probably take be a little easier on starting. Still steady at 190. Looks like oil pressures. I don't know what that would be. I guess maybe 30. Not half bad. I sure wish I could rev it up right now. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off. I want to see if it starts right back up. Oh yeah, a little celebratory beer. All right, the truck's been setting for about 5 minutes. We'll turn the pump on, turn the ignition on, and see if she starts. Ignition, fuel. Yes. About 195 right now, but it's been setting. So generally when the coolant stops moving, or in this theory water, the temperature kind of goes up, so once it starts circulating again, it'll probably go back down to 190, maybe 185. Who knows? 190, but if you scan around that, the coolant passage going to the thermostats around 145, 150. So what do I trust? This or the gauge? The only thing I can think of is because of the wind off the fan, it's throwing the temperature reading from the infrared gun. That's the only thing I can come up with. I'm not sure. Other than that, that needle's been holding steady. It sounds pretty good. All 8 cylinders are doing what they're supposed to do, creating heat. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off. Go ahead and wrap the video up. Well, guys, my nerves are calm and I'm extremely happy. The old coolant system seems to be doing what it's supposed to do. Even though that radiator's a little on the small side, I think it's gonna be all right for this stock 350. Like I stated earlier, I'd much rather have at least a 24 by 18, but they didn't make them for cheap, so that's why I got this one. But it seems to be doing what it needs to do. It stayed at 190 for quite a long time, and I think I've had this thing running for a good 30, 35 minutes, and I never saw that needle get past 190. So that is probably pretty good. Even though that is a 170 thermostat, be nice if it stayed at least at 180, but it's doing what it needs to do, and I'm happy. Now this alternator bracket may not be usable in most scenarios, but for this 76 Chevy Love, it's working out and doing what it needs to do. My old alternator is still putting out. I did check it at the battery and it was at 14.5 volts. So that is good, and that's gonna save me some money in the future. The fan, I believe, is okay. Wasn't hitting anything even when I revved it up. Of course, I didn't really rev it up hard, and it was pulling some air. I mean, you saw those auto gauge instructions really suck up to that radiator, and it stuck there. I actually had to kind of pull on it to get it away from it. Really, the only thing that's gonna be in front of that radiator is a transmission cooler, which leads me into the next video. The next video will be getting this thing to shift into gears, because this truck originally was a 4-speed, and now we went to an automatic transmission. If you didn't know, it has a turbo 350 in it right now, but I have no way of putting it in gear. I already got a transmission cooler, I already got a kick down cable, it's already got the dipstick in it. I did that the last video I did on this truck, and I already got a shifter for it. I bought that months and months ago, so really all I got to do is just get after it, figure out how I'm gonna mount that shifter and make all that work, do what I gotta do there, and then we can start putting this thing into gear and then move on to the next step to getting this thing back on the road. That way we can take it down the street and back and see what it's gonna do with a stock 350. I'm ready to roast a 185, 75, 14. I am ready to put one to shame right now, I'm telling you. Well, we gotta work through all these systems. Fuel, we gotta have a fuel system better than a radiator jug in front. We gotta have a battery located more permanently. And obviously we need to be able to put it in gear, and we need to be able to stop. That seems to be the most important of all of them. Well guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun with this. Links will be in the description with everything I use. That way if you're doing a Chevy Love and you wanna just kind of copy everything I did, then you can just start clicking on links and purchase what you wanna get. All right guys, I got some gas in this tank. I'm gonna go ahead and open the door back up, and I'm just gonna let this thing run out of fuel. Enjoy the sound of an open exhaust stock 350. All right guys, like I always say, until then, thanks for watching. Come on horns, don't let me down. Oh.